today as we open up the Word of God, and as we talk about what you've got for us today. I pray that the lesson will make sense. I pray the children will see how important their lives are and how their role in your plan is huge. And I can't wait to talk about this. I pray that they'll listen well, they'll understand what we've got for them, and I pray that you'll bless us today. In your name I pray. Amen. Man, Thanksgiving was awesome. I cannot imagine a greater holiday than a holiday centered around food. I love it. We had a great time. But with Thanksgiving, we're going to talk about something that we have to be thankful for. If you open up to Jeremiah chapter 33, Jeremiah 33, he has got a very large book. The book of Jeremiah is awesome. He's got a lot to say, but we've got to read one really awesome passage. Before we do that, we've got one verse that we have centered around how God created us for a purpose. Can we all quote this verse on the screen all together? Ephesians 2:10. Ready? For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in them. Before God created you, he set up a plan for your life. And it's a huge plan. What we are going to see today is that that plan is for something exciting, and it's something far bigger than we could even imagine on our own. Jeremiah chapter 33, verse number 14, let me read it. It says this, Behold, the days are come, saith the Lord, that I will perform that good thing which I have promised unto the house of Israel and to the house of Judah. What we're reading right now, this is called prophecy. When prophecy is first said, has the thing they're talking about happened yet? Yes or no? No, prophecy is about something that's going to happen in the future that has not happened yet. So Jeremiah is prophesying, and he said something's going to happen to the house of Israel. It's a good thing, and God himself has prophesied it. And in those days, at the time will I cause the branch of righteousness to grow up unto David, and he shall execute judgment and righteousness in the land. In those days shall Judah be saved, and Jerusalem shall dwell in safety, and this is the name wherewith he shall be called the Lord our righteousness. Jeremiah is prophesying that one day a man is going to come to earth and he's going to take away the sins of the world. And after that's done, he is going to set up an eternal kingdom right here on earth that all of God's children get to serve in. And Jeremiah is talking about one guy. Who is that guy? Not David. He's from David's line. Jesus is exactly right. Jeremiah lived hundreds of years before Jesus lived. But he said, Israel, if you can be patient, you are going to see God do something absolutely incredible. If you're taking notes, I want you to write down our 3 points that we've got for today. Jeremiah, so if you're taking notes, the title is Born for a Purpose, Jeremiah's message from God. We've got 3 points today. The first is that a great future is promised. You know, I do not like things where I don't know what's going to happen on the other side. I just don't like it. If there's an unknown, if there's a room and you have to walk through a curtain to get in and you don't know what's on the other side, my heart beats a little faster. I do not like situations where I cannot say this exactly is going to happen. Roller coasters are fun. I like adrenaline. I think it's fun. But the moments leading up to me getting on the roller coaster are all bad. Very scary stuff, because you're waiting in line, and the thing goes up, 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 and you think that's so high, and someone could die from that height. What if I fell out? What if I hit a bird on the way down? What if the guy in front of me spits? Oh, that'd be so bad. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen on that ride. And every time they scream, and every time they come back safe, but then you wonder, am I going to be the one guy that doesn't make it back safe and sound? And that's always going through my mind. We went to Six Flags this summer, Madison and I. We left Cora with a babysitter, and we went and rode roller coasters all day long. Madison looks at the Goliath, the biggest. This is the Goliath, right? The biggest one at the park. And she goes, Ryan, oh, we're riding that. I'm all right. I was car sick from the ride down. And then I got on roller coasters. I'm like, honey, I'm a little green right now. I don't know if I can do this. She goes, no. Don't be a pansy. She goes, what if I tell all the kids at kids' church that you didn't ride it? It's like, okay, fine. I'll get on the roller coaster. That's fine, whatever. So we get up to the roller coaster, and I'm thinking, okay, I've got plenty of time to get my mental game together because this is huge, all right? I don't want to ride this, but I'm going to do it because my wife, she might punch me, and I don't want to get punched. I don't want to do that. So we get up, and I'm thinking, okay, I've got this whole line. I'm going to psych myself up. It's going to be fine. And we walk up to the huge platform, got to the very top. And there was no one in line, and the roller coaster was wide open. We walked right onto the roller coaster.
I think we waited for it to go through one time, and then we were on it. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness gracious, this is it. This is the last moment. God, I'll never see Cora again. This is it. You're asking me to come see you. So I got on the roller coaster, and you know how you've been on roller coasters, right? If you've been on a roller coaster. So you know like the click, 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 and then it locks into place? All they have keeping you like safe on this is one little thing that goes over your lap. Not a bar, no straps, no little thing on your lap. That is it. We were riding up the whole ride. And do you know what I did the whole way up? I went like this. I had my arms crossed, and I'm not looking, and I am just, and Madison goes, oh, Ryan, look, you can see all of Atlanta from here. I'm like, I'm not opening my eyes. She goes, look, you see, that's our hotel. It's a really tall building. See that? That's where we stay. I'm like, I'm not looking. And then I open my eyes, and you know how you just round the top of the hill, and you think, this is it. This is over. Like Stephen in the Bible, I think I see Jesus standing on the right hand of God. This is it. And then you know what? Every time I've gone on a roller coaster, I have gotten to the other side, and I have been just fine. But you know, there's a fancy little invention called a heart rate monitor. My Apple Watch tells me when there is something bad going on in my heart is racing. In fact, it starts buzzing like it goes like you're getting like something bad's wrong. You're like, what in the world? And it says, calm down, heart rate too high. It's pretty scary. And I looked at it and thinking, you know what? I am terrified, but in reality, I have watched other people go through this ride a bunch of times. And I don't think anybody's ever died. Now, does that stop you from being scared in the moment? No, not really, but you can hold on to a promise that the end of this ride is going to be pretty sweet. Now, if you've not been on a roller coaster, there's something really fun about them. When you step off of that roller coaster, number one, you think you can fly. Number two, you feel like you can take on anybody in the world. Like Goliath, like bring it on. You've got adrenaline just surging through your body, and you think you can take on anything. But in the moment, you get pretty scared. Jeremiah is looking at God, and he's saying, God, I really want you to come save us. I'm ready for your promise to get here. And God said this, tell Israel that it's going to happen. It's not going to happen yet, but wait for it, because the end of this story is going to be sweet. Do you realize that God has prepared a place for us called heaven? And when we get to that place, it is going to be beyond what we have ever imagined it to be. No matter how fearful you might be, realize that God has gone before you and made your path straight. Do you realize there's nothing you could do that's going to take God by surprise? There's nothing bad that can happen. There's no thing that could pop up where you're like, oh, you know what? This is the one thing that God didn't know about. No. God knows everything. So point number two, the end of the story will be sweet. There is a future that's promised, and the end of our story is very sweet. Now, you guys know this. The end of a thing is usually better than the beginning. When we went to Thanksgiving, you know what? When there's so much food to be eaten, don't even put it on the table. Just put it out on the counters and let me walk through and pile my plate up. So also, this is a tip that you will now be able to use for the next 90 years of your life. Are you ready for this? Whenever they pray for the food, make sure that when they go to pray, you are standing right next to where the food line starts. That is like the best tip I could ever give you, because then they're done praying, you grab your plate, and you're the first one in line, which means you're also the first one in line for second round. Absolutely. So that's what Madison and I did. We were praying, and we not during the prayer, surely, but we did get right up next to that food line. They prayed, they said amen, and then I grabbed my plate and went to town. Now, you know you're getting a lot of food when your wife or friend or brother, whatever, looks at your plate and goes, whoa. See, I start with the mashed potatoes, and then everything else is built upon the foundation of mashed potatoes. Oh, it was so good. We used paper plates. The middle of my paper plate was sagging in just a little bit. It was a wonderful, wonderful meal. And you know those rolls at the end? The rolls are like your sponges to soak up everything left over. Oh man, it was good. We had a good time. And after it was all over, I kind of pushed back from the table, and all together, when you have a good meal, you just go, oh, gross. Well, man, it was a great meal, and I just think that was perfect. And then Grandma goes over and goes, all right, who's ready for dessert? And I look at Madison, and I think I always forget about that. That's I forgot about dessert. Well, that didn't stop us. Pretty sure we each had 4 or 5 slices of pie. Man, it was there, and it was good. See, a meal's not complete without the icing on top. Jeremiah's looking at God. God, I know you've got a purpose with all this. I know that life gets hard and I don't see you. You keep saying that you're going to send a Savior, but he's not here yet. I really wish he'd get here. God says this. The end of our story is going to be sweet. When we're saved, we get to go to a place called heaven. But there's something incredible. When God gives us life, that life is for a purpose. Let me read this to you. Jeremiah 1:4. Same guy, Jeremiah the prophet. It says this. Then the word of the Lord came saying, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee and ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. God looked at Jeremiah and said, look, you're just a kid. You're a little kid, but I have something prepared for you that's going to be far greater than you could ever imagine. And that thing that I've got for you is a life spent with me where I'm going to help you through every journey, every trial. I am there for you. And your job as a prophet is to be telling everybody that the end of the story is sweet, that there is a place called heaven and it's going to be there for them. The cool thing with the prophecies in the Bible is that a lot of times God lets us read how those prophecies were fulfilled. In Luke chapter 21, it says in verse 29, then he spake unto them a parable, saying, behold, the fig tree and all the trees. When they now shoot forth, you see and know of your own selves that summer is now nigh at hand. So likewise, when ye see these things come to pass, know ye that the kingdom of God is nigh at hand. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away until all be fulfilled. Jesus is talking to Jewish people. And he looks at him and he reminds them of what Jeremiah said hundreds of years ago. Hey, do you remember that Jeremiah said that there's going to be a kingdom coming? Remember how he said that kingdom was going to be on the earth and God was going to set it up from someone that he sent from heaven? Guess what? I am that guy, and I'll be setting up my kingdom in Jerusalem. They got so excited. Now, one thing that Jesus told them right before he went up, they're looking at him and saying, Master, is it time for the kingdom yet? They wanted Jesus to go up to Herod, kick the door in and say, all right, dude, you're out, I'm in, I'm king of Israel. They really wanted him to do that. And Jesus said this, look, you've got to finish your trials and your fight here, but once that's done, I am coming back and I will set up a kingdom here. Do you know what's super cool? We will all be a part of that kingdom. You didn't miss it. Jesus was on the earth, and when he came, he told everybody about himself because he is going to come back, and we get to help God build his kingdom. The end of our story will be sweet. And just like Thanksgiving and the sweetness that we had at the very end, realize the sweetness of dessert cannot even be compared to the sweetness of an eternity with Jesus Christ. All right, I'm all done. I've got a story I'd love to tell you. If you write that third point down, you are born for a great purpose. God has something designed for every single person, and Jeremiah's story is something very unique because as God looked at him and said, look, Jeremiah, you are born with a purpose before I even created you in your mother's womb. And then Jeremiah said to God, ah, Lord, behold, I cannot speak, I am a child. But the Lord said unto me, say not, I am a child, for thou shalt go to do all that I shall send thee, and whatsoever I command thee, thou shalt speak. I worked a job when I was a kid. I was 14, and I went and applied everywhere I could because I wanted to go work, wanted to make money. Anybody else like making money? It's great, isn't it? Whenever you get paid, I don't know, anybody else do this? You like getting paid in small bills so your wallet looks really full? Anybody do that? Or whenever you're at Walmart and you pull out that stack of, they're all ones, and it's like $10, but it feels like a lot of money, right? So I went and I got a job at Publix. Now, I was bagging groceries. Anybody go to Publix and see those little, I used to be that little guy with my little black shorts and my little green shirt. I was loving it. You know, the cashier's talking to you about her grandma and how the sun's nice and the weather, whatever. And you're like, good grief, lady, do you do this to every person? Do you talk to every single person about this? Well, then that little person bagging all the groceries, that was me. So I'm bagging everything up. I'm getting to know my coworkers. I'm like, hi, I'm Ryan. And they're like, oh, cool, my name's whatever. And I'm meeting everybody. But there's this one really old guy named Jerry. Jerry. His name is, I don't know why it's doing that. Mr. Jerry. Mr. Jerry. Now, Mr. Jerry, he walked with a limp. He was maybe like 200 years old. I don't know. He was a pretty old guy, pretty stocky, and he always wore this dark, gross, crusty-looking hat. Jerry had walk in, and he'd kind of walk with his little limp, and he'd go, and he'd stand in front of the one cashier that he didn't hate. He hated all the rest of them. There's that one guy that he didn't hate bagging groceries for. So he'd stand there, and he'd bag groceries very carefully, very slowly, but he got his job done. At like 1 o'clock every single day, Jerry would stop what he's doing. In the middle of whatever he's doing, he would stop, and he'd go into this closet, open it up, and he'd take out this big cart with wheels on it. And on this cart was every manner of cleaning supplies. I mean, he had spray bottles, soaps, cleaners, whatever, a mop, a bucket. He had everything on that cart, and he'd walk with his limp, and he would walk to the first bathroom and close it down, and he would wipe every inch of that bathroom, get the whole thing sparkling clean. Jerry was not a janitor. No, he was a grocery clerk, just like I was. He'd bag groceries. Jerry was not a janitor, but Jerry cleaned the bathrooms. That's his thing. He had done that for like a decade at that store. He showed up, he'd do his thing, and then at 1 o'clock, he grabs his cart, and he would clean the bathrooms. That's what he did. Well, one day, I'm looking around, I'm thinking, there's nothing to do, the store's dead, nobody's here. I'm looking around, I cleaned everything I could, and at the end, I went to the guy in charge and said, hey, what needs to be done? He goes, well, not a whole lot. I guess you could go clean the bathrooms. Well, all right, what a great idea. Sure, I'll do that. So I knew where Jerry kept it, so I pulled the cart out, and I went over to the bathroom and closed it all down. I'm inside, and I'm wiping everything down. Have you ever been somewhere where you think you're alone and you're not alone, and then it scares you to death when you realize you're not alone? Yeah, okay. So I'm wiping down toilets, not a glamorous job at all, but I'm whistling away. I'm kind of cleaning everything in the mirror, wiping down the mirror. You don't want windows in the bathroom. That'd be a little weird. So I'm cleaning everything in the bathroom. I'm getting it all done. And then all of a sudden I hear something and turn around, and I jumped about out of my skin. It was Jerry. And he looks at me. Jerry didn't say much, ever, to anybody. And he didn't completely hate me, but he didn't like anybody. And he looks at me and he just said, young man, what are you doing? I'm cleaning the bathroom. And I'm like, this just needed to be done. Why? He goes, young man, I have been here for a very long time. My name's Mr. Jerry. I clean the bathrooms. Oh, okay, well, I don't particularly like wiping down toilets. I mean, if you want to do this. And he didn't say anything. He just kind of looked at me, and I kind of set my bottle down and very slowly walked away like, don't hit me with the mop, man. I'm all right. This is all, if you want to do this, this is all yours. Because his name is Jerry, and Jerry cleans the bathrooms. It's what he does. He shows up every day. He does his job. He takes his lunch break, and then Jerry cleans that's just what he does. And every day I'm bagging groceries, and I'd feel my little watch beep, and I'd look over, and there's Jerry, doing exactly what Jerry does. And I'd do my thing, and all of a sudden, it'd be all done. Well, one day I worked a weird shift. It was on Saturday, and all of a sudden, I had to use the restroom, and I went, and the bathrooms were destroyed. I mean, it was so gross. Toilet paper everywhere. I don't know why, but when you guys go to the bathroom, you don't put your paper towels in the trash can. No. You ball them up and throw them in a random corner of the bathroom. Whatever the reason you do that, I don't know. But, it was just destroyed. Absolutely a mess. I walked out, and I looked around, and I said, hey, what's going on? I had never been here where the bathrooms are like this. They said, oh, you know what? Jerry cleans the bathrooms. Jerry's not here today. Jerry took a day off, and he's spending it with some family. Jerry's not here. Jerry cleans wow, we need someone else to clean the bathrooms. Ryan, would you go get that cleaning cart and take care of him? I'm like, yeah, sure. First, I don't want to get stared at by Jerry again. That was not comfortable. But if he's not here, I'll take care of it. You see, you have a job to do, and God knows what that is. In fact, most of us, if not every single person in this room, has multiple jobs to do. Well, right now, your job is to be the best son or the best daughter you can be. One day, it's going to be the best teenager that you could be. And then it's going to be best college student ever. And then it's going to be best boyfriend or best girlfriend, best spouse, best father, and best mother. See, God has multiple jobs. I don't care what you do for a living. Your job before God is holy. Can I give you an example of that? We had 8 people up here just a second ago. And I gave each person scribbles. Who had number 2? Who drew number 2? Somebody did a really good job on that cream right here. Who did this one? Anybody? Who was that? All right. So, Leah, you drew this, right? You had this one? Can you look at that and say exactly what this is supposed to be a picture of? Okay, yeah, because you've seen the whole picture. But if you were to look at that, I wouldn't really. Is that a cloud? What is that? A fluff. I don't know what that is. Because you don't get to see how your job matches with everybody. When you're over there holding it, you're thinking, I don't even know how to draw this because I do not know what this is. But Mr. Ryan gave it to me, I'm going to do the best of the job I can. And you did a marvelous job at that. That looks really good. But you know, when you're living your life, God's going to give you a job like, hey, yes, your job right now is to be the best child you can be, but I'm going to add something to it. I want you to be in charge of the dishes at your house. The dishes? The dishes? Really? Like loading the dishwasher, unloading the dishwasher? If your mom and dad told you to do it, I guess you've got to. And you think, that's lame. That's nothing. That's dishes. Ew, gross. I don't want to touch where someone else's old gross food was. That's nasty. I don't want to do that job. No, that's weird. But if your parents gave you a job, it's pretty smart to do it, isn't it? So what you do is you go and you do the dishes and you scrub them off and you rinse everything down the sink and then you put them in the dishwasher. Well, you know what happens? One day you're going to sit down and you're going to eat a meal realizing, you know what? My job was pretty lame, but it helped my whole family. You know what? I did the dishes, but someone else had a different job. Their job was the laundry. I'm wearing clean clothes. And because of what I did, my family's eating off of clean dishes. And you know what? I remember when we came home, I didn't have to bring my machete to get through our front lawn because someone else's job was to mow the grass. You know, our family, we each have our own job. We each have a part that we need to play, and it might look like scribbles. It may not look like, I don't get that. I don't know how but that doesn't make a difference. Are you kidding me? I'm supposed to go take the dog on a walk for real? That's what you want me to do? But you know, when we ignore the jobs that we've been given, bad stuff can happen. If you don't take your dog on a walk, do you know what's going to happen to your dog? Your dog's going to look like a blimp. It's going to be huge. Your dog's not going to be able to walk because it is so obese. But your job, doing it every day, makes a huge difference. I want to tell you this. I'm all done. Jeremiah had a really hard job. If you read Jeremiah's book and all the things that he did, we only read 2 different passages. God created him with a purpose. God told him to prophesy. And then in Luke, the prophecy came true and Jesus said, I am going to build my kingdom. But Jeremiah was born for a purpose. Do you know, it's the hardest thing in the world to go through and do a job where you don't understand what's going to happen next. But Jeremiah, by doing it, we now have a book written because of what he did. I've got one more story. I didn't know if I'd have time to tell it, but I've got one more. Jeremiah is doing something that we call driving blind. Driving blind. Mr. Adam, you ever driven blind? You ever been in dense fog? Ever been in a fog where the clouds are all coming off the ground? Miss Madison, we've been in California. We've been seeing some crazy flog. New word. It's a mix between the thing that jumps and eats flies and a fog. So a fog is a really dense cloud, and it's real hard to see. Mr. Matt, have you ever driven in torrential rain? You ever done that? Pretty bad, right? How about snow? Mr. Adam, you guys get some snow up in Kentucky. You've driven some crazy snow before? There have been times that I've come out, actually this past week, my whole windshield was frozen. I hate that. And I'm not a very patient person, so I like to just start driving as fast as I can. There have been times that I have been very dangerous situations because I was not patient enough to let my windshield be transparent. So yesterday I was not going to do anything. Madison and Cora and my whole family, all the girls, were going to go shopping in Nashville. Guys, we don't do that, right? I mean, that's not for us. So Madison's like, what are you going to do? And I said, nah, sit on the couch, watch Disney Plus, eat Taco Bell. That's pretty much all. That's my plan for the day. My granddad calls me up and says, Ryan, would you like to do something fun? I said, yeah, absolutely. I've got nothing going on. So we went to West Point. I didn't even know West Point was a city in Tennessee, but it is right above Alabama. So we drove all the way down to West Point, about 100 miles away from here, got down, we loaded up his trailer with a real man's toy. It was it's a Ranger, what we call it. It's like a dune buggy, but it's not quite a dune buggy. It's like a four-wheeler with a cage on it. It's a lot of fun. So ATV, here it is. So we got an ATV. My grandpa has one. We drove all the way down there in this big, beefy pickup truck. We got out, unloaded it. We spent the whole day yesterday driving through woods, forests, trails. We drove off a cliff. No joke. Drove off a cliff. Survived it. It was incredible. We had so much fun. So my grandpa's driving. Grandpa's 72. He's old. But I love my grandpa, and he's pretty good at what he does. He's done this a time or two. So I'm driving real slow. I mean, I am wanting to get from this point of the woods back to this point of the woods surviving. And Granddad, he goes, why don't you just step on it? We'll be all right. I'm like, Granddad, I don't know if I can do that. He goes, no, you'll be fine. I've been here before. You'll be all right. So I stepped on the gas, and I'm trying to just get through. I mean, it's rocks and bumps. These are not roads. These are trails, like what horses could ride on. And we're driving on them. It's a lot of fun. I'd never done anything like that before. We are 2 minutes into our drive. And he had me in the driver's seat, and I know how to drive a four-wheeler. I know how to drive one of these ATVs. I'm pretty good at it. And we had a mud puddle right in front of us. And I thought, oh, we're going to get muddy. I knew that beforehand. It's going to be fine. So I stepped on. He goes, all right, Ryan, just be careful on those mud puddles. And I had already stepped on it. And I had driven us straight in. See, I didn't know how deep that mud puddle was. Really no way to know. You had to get out and stick sticks down in it and see how deep it was. Nobody does that. But I drove us straight down into a mud puddle, and the entire 2 minutes in, we had just started, and the entire ATV that we were in was flipped over on its side. So this is like completely over on its side. We were like that, and the wheels are down right here on the bottom. The whole thing, I dumped my grandpa out of the thing, and he had his seatbelt, and he unbuckled it. He had to push on the top. We about had to get his winch out and dig us out of this thing. Actually, it was really incredible. I did get us out, and it was awesome to watch. And I looked at Grandpa, I said, how in the world do you know if a mud puddle is going to do that to you? He goes, really? You don't know. So what you do is you look at the tracks and you see, are most of the tracks going straight through? Or if you would have looked before you got to that mud puddle, you would have seen all the tracks were going around it. So what you got to do is you've got to see who went before you to figure out what you can do best. I got the hang of it. Actually, I had a great time. I'm flooring it, and I'd look, and there are trees everywhere, and there's no other option but to go straight through. And I looked at my grandpa, and he's sitting. I mean, I'm going like 30 miles an hour in terrain that I have no idea what's coming next. And he's just sitting there, and he's kind of just bouncing along. And I looked at him, and he goes, just go for it. Oh, man, I floored it. We went 30 miles an hour, hit a solid wall of mud, and it threw mud everywhere. It went like 10 feet up and everywhere out. It was crazy. We drove through it, and I mean, we're getting soaked. We're getting mud on us, on the birds. I mean, it was crazy. And we got to the other side, and I'm just like screaming how fun this is. This is so sweet. But you know, when the mud splashes up, it covered up our windshield. So we had to top that wind. Actually, my granddad, he has no fear of anything. We were driving on a cliff, right, side of this mountain. He hit a mud puddle. It blinded us, right, so we can't see through our windshields, all mud. And he kept going. I stick my head up the window, grab, and swerved over. We were headed off the side. We didn't. We went later and survived it. But it was crazy, and I said, Grandpa, you can't see where you're going. He goes, well, yeah, it is pretty important. I guess you need to see the tracks and see the road, see where you're going. I looked at my grandpa, and he had no fear because he knew this. I've been here before. I've got a pretty good idea of the terrain, and ultimately I know this. If I can see where the other people have been, I'll be all right. It's when I can't see that there's a problem. It is so important for people like Jeremiah and people like me and you. Make sure you're always able to see God clearly, because when God's view starts to get clouded, it gets real hard to see where you're going. God has a huge plan for all of us. And for us to be able to do what God's asked us to do, we've got to make sure that we can see him clearly to understand that we were born with a purpose. With every head bowed and every eye closed, we're going to ask God to help us. Our lives are awesome adventures. Way more fun than even a four-wheeler through the middle of the woods driving through mud puddles. Way better than that. But you know, if we're going to get through the life that we've got assigned to us, then we've got to make sure that we are staying in really close touch with God. So here's what I want you to do. Would you pray right now and say, God, I trust you with anything, with everything. Whatever you ask me to do, I'll do. Anywhere you want me to go, I'll go. And everything that you've got laid up for me, I pray that I will be able to get it because I can see you clearly. You're born for a purpose. You have a great future promised. Heaven is going to be so sweet. I want everybody in this room to be able to find their purpose. And that happens when we can see God. Father, we love you, and I pray that today, as we understand that we don't always get to see the whole pie altogether, we just get to see our piece of the pie. There are children in this room that would grow up and they might be in government. Some of them will be small business owners. Some might teach. Some might train. Some might invent an idea that had not been thought of before. But no matter what our piece to play in your life or in your plan for all of us, no matter what our part to play in it is, I pray that we'll be able to do whatever you've asked us to do because we are staying in super close touch with you. Lord, we love you. I pray that you'll guide us through the rest of this day. In your name I pray. All God's children said, Amen. Mr. Matt has some trivia questions, some games, some fun stuff, and who knows, if you guys do great, maybe he'll give out money. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Mr. Matt, why don't you play a game with us?